The women of the company first undertook group research and used interviews with women as primary material that was then drawn upon during workshops. A scenario and then a more detailed synopsis was devised out of improvisations, which were in turn transcribed, so fixed I guess, into written material by some members of the cast, and then Michelin Wander was invited to come and work with this transcribed material. Wander's revisions consisted of editing and tightening and reorganising what was already there and adding new material where needed, but all of this involved discussion with the company. Member Nancy Duguid's description of Care and Control as being a collaborative effort, a collective piece that Gay Sweatshop collectively wrote is unequivocal. Wander, similarly, did not claim the status of author. As she explained, the company researched and devised the play and I scripted it, which is not the same as writing, end quote. The difficulty of defining the status or practice of writing in relation to collaborative models of devising remains pertinent in contemporary examples where intertextuality and multiple authorship borrows from McLuhan that the medium is the message. One of the longest-standing devising companies in the UK, Forced Entertainment, have eschewed the singular author model for their more than 20 years of existence. Their image of theatre is a space in which different visions, different intentions could collide. This is one of the show's bloody mess, and the shows tend to be a bit of a deliberate mess. As member Tim Etchells writes, no clean single vision in our work, no minimalist control freak authority line, since by collaboration, improv collage, the bringing together of diverse creativities, one gets an altogether messier world of competing actions, approaches and intentions, end quote. Collaborative practice works against the assumed individualism, autonomy, authority and supposed genius of the author, inevitably also resisting the proffering of meta-narratives, and in that, collaboration is a political gesture. Yet I find the credits of all Forced Entertainment shows interesting in that respect. Credits conceived and devised by the company, direction Tim Etchells, text Tim Etchells and the company. Ethics of collaboration. A colour. Orange. Thank you. Nothing's been destroyed yet. Beckett 2, Barbara McMahon, The Guardian, Saturday the 4th of February 2006, abridged version. Yeah, I thought you might go like that. Rather than mine, but we'll see what happens. Go across. Barbara McMahon, The Guardian, Saturday 4th of February 2006, abridged version. Beckett estate fails to stop women waiting for Godot. Lawyers representing Samuel Beckett's estate objected to the use of female actors in the two main roles, Vladimir and Estrigan, issuing an injunction against the theatre in Pontedera, Tuscany, to try to stop the performances. The director of the cast ignored the legal challenge, continuing the run of the play, and a court in Rome has now supported their position. It ruled this week that men did not have a monopoly on these roles, at least on this occasion. Colour?
Blue.
Chuck it across to him. Thank you very much.
And, we need about 10 minutes for...
Deirdre Hedden, with additional new material from Ede and Lunsford. The term verbatim theatre refers to a form of theatre which places interviews with people at the heart of the processing product. Practised in the UK since the 1970s, the past decade has seen a remarkable increase in performances that might also be called performances of solicitation and or appropriation, with performers taking on the words of the interviewees. Most often a playwright does edit and arrange those interviews for performance. David Hare does this in Permanent Way by David Hare, as it says on the published play script. Whose rights are being protected, I wonder? Though I presume all those who were interviewed signed a contract, do they understand what they're signing up for or to? That their words will be edited and recontextualised? Do they know what it means to be turned into a character, a representation, often a representative, one who is fixed in time, destined to repeat the same lines over and over again? Do those whose words are used to make the play receive some of the royalties or even a fee? It may be legal, but is it ethical?
Some people.
Yeah, chuck it across.
Awkward person.
From Deleuze and Guattari, 1000 Plateau. To reach not the point where one no longer says I, but the point where it is no longer of any importance. Thank you. Whether one says I, we are no longer ourselves. We have been aided, inspired, multiplied. My thanks to Deleuze and Guattari, to my MPhil student Harry Wilson, to the artist Alistair McLennan and critics Mel Russell and Barbara McMahon, and to academics Helen Freshwater and Forced Entertainment. Thanks to Gay Sweatshop and the Performance Reenactment Society, and thanks to my collaborator here, Johan, who sent me this on the 24th of August 2011. Quote, I think that one way to address some of the problems that we encounter when we look at issues of copyright and authorship in relation to dance has to do with how the virtual and the actual are intimately related and intertwined, yet completely different in kind. This becomes a problem since the legal and conceptual frameworks of representation and signification are predominantly concerned with the work as a set actuality. The creative process, on the other hand, has to engage with extremely faint and unstable dynamic situations where the actual and the virtual are engaged in an intense process of mutual exchange of content.
White.
White. You pass me white, Andrews, thank you. There's 3 bits there. I'll have to abridge this even further. This is a very abridged version. Well done. It's looking great. So, in 2010, the Performance Reenactment Society invited me to donate a performance memory, a specific moment from a live artwork that moved or inspired me. I'm asked to focus in on a particular moment or image and to think about a physical object, article of clothing or a prop that might help in the recreation of that performance memory. My recreation will be photographed. I remember remembering Belfast-based artist Alistair McLennan's performance, Mel, that I saw in 1996. I remember telling the archivist who sat beside me holding a recorder about Alistair wearing long black coat and black balaclava, pacing slowly and repeatedly through an underground arch in the Arches. I remember telling the archivist about the burnt-out cars that littered the space, and the smell of those cars, the slow, steady ritual walk of Alistair. I remember remembering the taped voices that washed over that dark space, speaking a monotonous litany of names, the names of all the people who had been killed in the so-called Troubles of Northern Ireland. Alistair walked through this installation for 7 hours non-stop. I kept returning to bear witness to that act. Most profoundly, I remember that as he walked, he tenderly held a small child's shoe in his large hand. I remember that as I shared this memory of a performance moment to the archivist, I began to choke on my own tears. The recording finished, and I remember being asked to sign a form confirming that this was my memory and no one else's. And I had a moment of anxiety because stories of performance circulated or passed down like Chinese whispers. Was this actually my memory? I then performed my action for the camera. My action for the camera. My memory and photographed action have been accessioned and donated to the Performance Reenactment Society collection, from which the exhibition, untitled Performance Stills, has now been curated, and it's a touring exhibition. My performance was intended as an homage to Alistair, but I wonder and I worry what he might think if he ever sees it. He didn't give me permission. Did I have the right to do this to his work? But is this his artwork? Or is it a representation of that unpredictable, unstable influx exchange between one author, the artist, and another author, the spectator? The contract I've signed says that the work is mine and the Performance Reenactment Society's. It's a co-created work, but the originating artist, if that's what Alistair is, isn't mentioned anywhere on that contract. Yesterday, I unearthed a photograph from Alistair's performance in 1996, and I realised that my memory has played tricks because he holds not one child's shoe in his hand, but 2. Should we stop? Have I had 20 minutes? Am I? Okay, so thank you very much. Can you just tighten the string? Can we hold the string up and see, do we have a rhizomatic sweet living sculpture? Almost. Well done. That's brilliant. Love it. Is that great? No exit, no entrance. It just goes on and on and on. No end point. I can continue and continue. But I won't. Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Yeah, well,
Thank you. I'll sit down in one.
thank you. Well, I would like to take the chance here to perhaps talk about entry points.
Yeah.